Hmm.
Right now saw the map of J&K. Like one part is occupied by POK and one is COK. Then why do we still draw it in the like map?
Because that's your territory. If someone come and capture your house, you will say that okay, take it. It's not my house.
So, but like they are already administering it, so we won't consider that.
Yeah. Huh?
Like they are already
We'll discuss the
administering.
next class, geography. Right. I will explain it. Huh. Right. So this week we have discussed about few of the topics from the geography and both internal security. So first, from internal security perspective, if you look, a topic was in news, and that is referred as drone defense with advanced radars. This is the Indian military objective in the aftermath of Operation Sindoor, you can say, in the aftermath. Right. A new strategy has been unveiled by the Indian military, Indian armed forces, especially after Operation Sindoor, where we want to strengthen our defense, especially aerial defense, by using both drones, by using advanced radars to detect and destroy drones. Because what we saw after India launched Operation Sindoor, how did Pakistan reacted? By sending a swarms of drones. Hundreds and hundreds of drones flying at the low altitude were sent to destroy targets in India, okay, and cause damage in India. So we have understood that the nature of warfare is continuously changing. Earlier, whenever we had war, what kind of war we had? Conventional warfare, where you have direct engagement between the soldiers as such. Okay, we have the tank warfare, right? But now what we are seeing is that the nature of warfare has changed. Rather than directly this attacking each other by sending soldiers and all, we are depending more on what artificial intelligence based drone warfare and all that. So India has to take this threat into account, and on that basis they have started, okay, some of the what you can call as this steps in this regard. So after the Operation Sindoor, also what we saw, that I talk about the northwestern regions of India, right? Starting again from Jammu and Kashmir. So Jammu and Kashmir, this area, what do we have? Punjab is there. Okay, then further we have Rajasthan and Gujarat we have. So we saw in this time that there are certain what coverage gaps, okay, gaps which are giving enemy an opportunity to use it and send their drones, send their aircrafts and all that, right? Drones largely we can say. So overall what we can understand that first of all, if we talk about globally also, this we have seen in the case of Russia Ukraine as well, the drone warfare is playing very important role, okay, in destroying enemy targets, air defense system, okay, causing inflicting casualties and also causing heavy damage on the major military sites and all that. And the second problem is that drones are relatively very cheap in nature. So you cannot counteract them by using your advanced air defense systems such as missiles. Okay, suppose you fire a missile to destroy a few drones, what will happen? You are facing economic damage, right? You are destroying few $1,000s worth of equipment by using millions and millions dollar worth of air defense system. So for that we require what? We require, right, kind of what you can call as cheap, relatively cheap we can say, air defense system. And there again the radars can play a very important role, because radars can be used to identify the target, and then the short range guns, okay, you have guns can be used to destroy those drones as such. So the overall we can try to understand is the provision is to procure what? Key radar system. So it will be procured, it will be developed indigenously. And now as per the recent report, Ministry of Defense has stated the 3 types of radar they are trying to procure here. 3 types of radar. First is what you call as triple LRI. What is triple LR? First of all, it will give you coverage at the low level. Low level means altitude wise you're talking about, okay, up to suppose 50 kilometers of altitude. Second, it will be of what nature? Lightweight, and what we are calling it as improved. So low level lightweight improved radar, that will give you a target 100 kilometers, okay, up to 100 kilometers, Okay, and then range, up to 100 of drones we can say. Okay, this radar will be able to track at the same time. Okay, at the same time, at one point in time, 100 of drones, and it will track over a distance of how many kilometers? Over distance of 50 kilometers, right? Second type of radar we are trying to procure is same triple LR, and this is called as what? Enhanced radar. Enhanced radar is different in the way that it is also using electro-optical tracking and passive RF detection. Electro-optical tracking means you track basically using which spectrum? Visible spectrum and infrared. Okay, so by tracking visible spectrum infrared, RF we have discussed in the atmosphere chapter. Okay, which of the layers of atmosphere reflect back radio waves? Which layer of the Earth atmosphere reflect back radio waves? Thermosphere. Okay, so that is what we call as RF detection. That means you send radar waves, right, radio waves, and this radio wave will interfere, will basically interact with the enemy system, and they'll come back toward you, and then you will use this to understand their location and all that. So this is same kind of radar, but it has two other things: electro-optical tracking and passive RF detection. Okay, passive RF detection means the radar itself will not have any source of RF. It will use the other equipments nearby. Why it is important to understand? Because suppose that you have a radar that is tracking the drones, okay, and here you have the enemy drones flying here. So what enemy can do? If this is the radar that is tracking it, if it is sending radio waves, enemy can understand this is the position of your radars as such. So it can destroy this radar itself in the first instance, right? But if the radar is using passive RF detection, this radar cannot be understood, the location cannot be understood by the enemy's system as such, and that is why we will be able to effectively track it. Okay, so that is the triple LRE. Third is air defense fire control radar drone detection. That is advanced version because it will not only detect the objects, it will also give command to fire guns. Okay, for example, it has located that here the drone is flying. So this information is shared with the machine guns that you are using here. Also, this information can be shared with the manpads system that we are using. Manpads means man portable air defense system. That means you are carrying on the shoulder. You are firing from the shoulder to damage and destroy the radars or any low flying object as such. So both the automatic guns as well as the man portable air defense system can be integrated with this radar. That means you are exercising a control over what? Firing. Okay, so fire control you have, plus IAF integration will done here. IAF integration simply it means that you have to identify, for example, India's drones and aircrafts can also be flying in the same area. So radar is tracking everything, but it need to differentiate which is enemy's drones, which is enemy's aircraft, and which is our aircraft. So IAF means what? Detection of friends or foes. Okay, so this radar will have capability to understand which flying object is friend, which flying object is ours, and which flying object is of enemy or foe as such. So these are the major characteristic we can associate with the recently this procure. Again, it has not been procured. This is in the state of what? Development or procurement order has been given as such. Okay, but for all these, what are the necessary condition? When will military procure it? Only if it is able to engage more than 100 targets and it is able to have a range of at least 50 kilometers. If the radars are capable of doing so, then only army will procure it and develop it. Apart from that, also one thing we have to understand here, that you might have heard about, okay, the air defense system of India, that is integrated system. We are calling it by what name? Akash. So once these radars are procured, it will be integrated with what? Akash Tir system. Okay, so that is the first thing. Now here also private sector can play a very important role. An example of this we have seen recently from NITK. So NITK has developed what? Such kind of radars as such. Okay, you have FNCW pulse Doppler radar that is sending Doppler waves. Okay, basically understanding the Doppler effect and all that. Plus here other thing we have to keep in mind, this term is most important one. Okay, actually you have to focus here. This is called as Indrajal. Okay, Indrajal is where military has said that a very effective role is being played by the private sector because they are developing exactly the similar kind of systems as is required for countering drones by Indian military as such. So there is a very high chance that their AI driven anti-drone system can be procured very soon by military as such. So earlier if you try to understand in the Akash, if you look at all of its component, either it is developed indigenously by DRDO or we have procured it from other countries. Like you have Barak 8 missile system that is procured from Israel as such. Okay, we have the S-400 system that is procured from Russia. Okay, we have Akash that is developed by India itself. So this is where we can see for the first time the role of private sector indigenous development. India talking about private sector. So Indrajal term you should keep in mind. That is where we're talking about. Plus Bhargavastra system is the other term that we are using these days. This is again to counter what? CUA system. That is a term we have to understand here. So CUA system. CUS means what? Counter of unmanned aerial system. Any low-lying flying objects. If you're countering it, okay, what is the term you are using for it? Bhargavastra. Okay, so it will also integrated with which system? Akash. So we have Indrajal, maybe integrated with its system will be integrated with Akash. We have Bhargavastra system, it can also be integrated with Akash. And overall, if we are able to properly integrate it, it means the air defense system will providing you 3 layers of security. One, obviously you have long range missiles, largely effective for the tracking of missiles, destroying missiles, as well as the enemy aircrafts flying at the higher altitude, right? Second, you have what? Medium range. We also have this time after Operation Sindoor to track and destroy drone. We have used which kind of system? Short range guns we have used. And these systems that we are developing, these are what we are referring at VSHORAD. VSHORAD means what? Very short range air defense system. So these three we already have developed and integrated as a part of Akash. Here is where more work is required, and these procurement of these radars will effectively enhance our capacity and capability to engage which kind of target? Very short range, that means up to 50 kilometers, okay, and also flying at a lower altitude as such, right? So this is what we have to understand. Now as far as the feature is concerned, 4 features we can highlight here that we have. That means these radars will be able to detect such kind of object which are having what? Low RCS. Low RCS means low radar cross section. This we have discussed in case of a stealth frigate also. I told you that a stealth frigate are not being easily detected by radar system because they are not able to reflect back radio waves. How they are not able to reflect back radio waves? Either because they have such kind of a structure. Okay, design is like this, that after radio waves is incident on them, rather than getting reflected, they get what? Refracted, diffracted and all these kind of things. Or they using such kind of materials which are able to absorb radio waves, or such kind of materials, such kind of this design you have, like for example hull design we have talked about. A similar thing is being done in the drones also, that they are not able to easily captured by the radio waves as such. So the first thing about this radar should be that they should be able to detect low RCS object. There is small object which are kind of stealth drone, and also because drones are not coming in 1 to 10 numbers, they are coming in hundreds and hundreds of numbers. So that is the challenge here. You have to engage so many targets at the same time as such, and also you have to integrate with the fire control system. So fire control integration that you discussed, same thing. We sure add guns and all that you discussed. Plus other thing that Indian military has asked that it should have which kind of coverage? 3D. That means it should be able to handle mountainous terrain. It should be able to handle desert-like terrain. Okay, and it should be able to handle what? Coast-like terrain. So all kind of terrain, radar should be able to detect such kind of object as such. And apart from that, silent tracking means both kind of tracking. You should have tracking in the day, tracking in the night. In day you can use visible light, in the night you can use infrared light. Okay, infrared basically radiation as such. So that is what we are talking about here, passive RF sensor, okay, EOTS and all that we have. Now apart from this also, if you look at this particular thing, VSHORAD we have discussed, right? Gun system, rapid response and all that. So that is all. Overall we again are in the phase of development. We have to see from where military procures it and to what extent it is successful and all. Okay, but it is very, very important step, keeping in mind the evolution of the warfare in the recent times. The next is a topic related to this geography, that is about World Meteorological Organization. It has projected La Nina resurgence in year 2025. Okay, so very, very important topic from examination point of view. Earlier also in 2018-19 UPSC has asked question from La Nina like event. So that is what we have to understand here. In detail we'll discuss that also in the climate of India chapter, right? So first of all we have to understand that what do we mean by the term La Nina. So La Nina basically means, it is a Spanish term that refers to little girl, okay, because it is opposite of another event that we see called as El Nino. So El Nino refers to little boy. Okay, so El Nino is little boy, that is where the term came first, and that is why the reverse phenomena began to be referred as what? La Nina. Okay, so reverse of boy, opposite of boy, that is the girl. So that is the La Nina. Now in simplest term, if you understand what is La Nina, so if I draw here the Pacific Ocean, we already know that this side we have Australia, this side what do we have? South America. and somewhere you have the equator passing like this here. So generally what we see in this part of the South America, we have discussed about ocean current. Which current is flowing here? Peru or Humboldt current, which is which kind of current? Cold current. So generally there is a cold current that is developing here. That is, the cold water will be cold, right? But sometime in some years, what happened? The water temperature rises here. Okay, due to certain reason, we'll discuss that later. But for example, if you suppose generally you have cold water here, in certain years the cold water is replaced by which kind of water? Warm water. So when warm water is flowing here, we call it as El Nino. After this warm water year, again when the cold water start to redevelop here, that is what we call as La Nina. And after El Nino, when the cold water current develops here, this temperature is colder than, the temperature of water is generally what? Colder than normal years. That means we can say, what is La Nina? In simplest way, we can say development of extremely cold ocean current near the coast of which America? South America. Which coast of South America? Western coast of South America. So extreme cold temperature, extreme cold ocean current develops near the western coast of South America. When this happens, this is what we call as the La Nina situation. That means where is it taking place? If someone asks you, where does La Nina event occurs? What should be the answer? Pacific Ocean. Because of this, you have cooling of the ocean that happens. Now, what is the effect of this? We try to understand here. Basically, suppose that you have extreme cold temperature here. You already have talked about this in climatology. If you have cold surface temperature, what kind of pressure would you expect? High pressure or low pressure? High pressure, right? So you have high pressure. Here somewhere temperature is relatively warmer. So this area, what do we have? Everywhere you have low pressure. So we know that wind always move from which pressure to which pressure? High pressure to low pressure. So due to this, we can say the easterly winds, because they're coming from easterly direction, easterly winds will become what? Much more stronger as such. Okay, that is what we have written here. The strength trade wind, southeasterly trade winds, if you remember, we have discussed, coming from subtropical high pressure belt to equatorial low pressure belt. So because of the development of high pressure in this area, what we see is strengthening of trade winds from which direction to which direction? East direction to west direction and such. And later on we'll discuss in climate of India, it is this particular wind that turns and reaches where? Coast of India in the form of monsoon wind as such. That means if La Nina is strengthening these trade winds are what actually are what you're calling as monsoon winds. So due to the La Nina event, what we can say? Monsoon will become stronger or weaker? Stronger. That means in India, whenever we have a La Nina like situation, what we can expect during monsoon? Very heavy amount of rainfall as such. That is what we have to understand. Okay, you have very heavy amount of rainfall that is observed in the La Nina like situation, and the WMO has forecasted that for this year, particularly year 2025 is when La Nina will develop, 2026 is when you see the effect on monsoon as such. So earlier you had probability of only 55%. Okay, it develops during which time? September to November. But now WMO has again changed its forecast. Now it says there is a probability of 60%, or there is 60% chance that this year we will see which kind of phase? La Nina like phase and such. That means if I say that in year 2026, what you can expect? Heavy monsoon rainfall. What else you can expect? If the monsoon rainfall is very heavy, especially in the urban areas, you will have flood like situation. Okay, so heavy rainfall is also not very good. Normal rainfall, normal monsoon is best. If there is a heavy rainfall, there is a chance of flood taking place here. That is why we are concerned about this. Okay, so same thing we have written here. If you talk about the overall impact, global impact of La Nina, what we have seen, other thing if you try to understand here, earlier suppose that in those time when the global warming was negligible in nature, cooling effect will be what? More pronounced. Now due to global warming, what we can say? Effect of La Nina is not seen to that much extent. So globally we can say that above average global temperature still will prevail because of the cooling effect of La Nina, because what is the countering factor here? Global warming, right? Similarly, if I talk about El Nino, what is El Nino? When you have development of the warm current. So El Nino is being intensified by global warming. That means impact of El Nino is seen to a greater extent, impact of La Nina is seen to a lesser extent as compared to last 30, 40, 50 years as such. That is because of global warming. Because of this, what will encounter? rainfall anomalies as such. Okay, increased flood risk in the monsoon affected areas, that already have discussed because of heavy rainfall in India as such. Overall, because of this also we have discussed and talked about tropical cyclone. What is the most necessary condition for tropical cyclone development? Require what? High sea surface temperature. So in La Nina years we can say probability of this will be what? Relatively lesser. Okay, because sea surface temperature will be slightly lesser than that. Same thing we have discussed. Okay, you have the risk of flood, you have the boost to southwest monsoon, potentially stronger rain, and because of heavy rainfall also, if you link, what will happen? Those area where we have this groundwater that is not replenished, will have the possibility of replenishment of groundwater. Reservoirs that we have, it will be recharged as such, especially in the northern part of India, plain part of India as such. Okay, and in the northern part, because snowfall will be heavy, what will experience? Colder winters as such. Okay, due to heavy snowfall. So these are what we can call as the impact we can witness because of the La Nina. Why it is important to predict? Why WMO has spent so much time in preparing and predicting or forecasting this event? Because this act as a tool for what? Right, now Government of India and its agency, which is the agency, leading agency that prepares for disaster management, you have NDMA. So NDMA is now using the forecast model WMO to understand there is a high probability of floods in the next year. So they will be prepared accordingly as such. Okay, they will ensure that the funding and all these things for adaptation, for mitigation is being dispersed in those areas which are affected heavily by monsoon as such. Okay, like plains of India, that is where you will see the floods. Urban areas of India, okay, where you have the problem of drainage and all that, you will be encountering floods and all that, right? So that is the first importance. Forecasting help us to prepare better for managing the disaster in the future. Second, we know that India's entire agriculture to a large scale revolves around monsoonal rainfall. That means if you have probability of higher rainfall, your agricultural planning will also be as per that. Okay, sowing of schedules we can talk about, crop variety choices, okay, we talk about. So these all can also be managed as such. Third is obviously it will play a very important role in what? Water management. Okay, like for example, recently we have discussed, in case of reservoirs, suddenly heavy amount of rainfall has triggered what? Sudden discharge of water from the reservoir that has caused flooding in the Punjab and all these areas. So now you are better prepared. Okay, you will be able to communicate with all the states. There is a possibility of higher rainfall next year. That means both states like Punjab, Haryana in this case should properly coordinate with each other, and based on the understanding, gradually we can keep on releasing water. We should not allow water to develop and build up in reservoir, because if heavy rainfall occurs, we'll have to again suddenly discharge it. So we can say in management of water also forecasting plays a very important role. And last again, what do we have? We can also develop early warning system, and we can integrate this WMO forecasting to predict rainfall, floods and all this in the nearby areas, okay, in the Indian areas as such. That is how we can understand this. The third topic we have is related to 2FA. This is something that I think all of you must be aware about it or must be using it even if you're not aware. That is two-factor authentication, simple mechanism and relevance. So this was in news recently. So question like this, generally they keep asking UPSC, basic question, basic concept based question. Okay, two-factor authentication, how does it work or what are its components and all these kind of things. So we have to understand this. So first of all, if you look at the two-factor authentication, what is two-factor authentication? This is authentication using two different parameters. First parameter is what? Knowledge. And second parameter is what is referred as possession or inherence, right? What it means, suppose that you want to log in, okay, into your net banking account, right? In that case, what do you have knowledge about? Password. Okay, you have knowledge about the password, so or user ID also you can say. So you input two data, you input your user ID, you input your password as such. That is first authentication, one factor we have. Second, what also bank is checking? Certain degree of possession or inheritance you have. Possession of what? Something that only you can have that, right? So what can that be? Your mobile number is linked with your bank account. So after you put your user ID and password, bank can send you what? OTP, one time password, and this is something that you will have only because mobile is in your possession. So that is what we're calling as which factor? Second factor. So first factor was user ID, password in this regard. Second factor was mobile based OTP. So when you put both of this, what happens? Bank is able to understand that you are the genuine person and it is you who the account belongs to, and after this they can give you what? Access or control over the account. Okay, same thing goes with credit card. You put all the digits of credit card. In credit card, what information you have? Expiry, you have information of this code called as CVV code. that is one factor, because all this thing is available in one system. If someone suppose stole your credit card, that means they will have credit card number, they will have the expiry date, they will also have access to CVV. Based on these three, if bank gives right to use the credit card, that means bank is using only how many factors? One factor. But generally in India, we have, RBI has mandated two-factor authentication. So whenever you put all the information of credit card, again what you get? OTP. So that means you will have second factor. So if someone even stole your credit card, they will not be able to use it, because OTP will come on your number. If you lost your mobile also and same guy got a credit card and mobile, in that case what will happen? Disaster. Okay, then you will lose all the control over the this account and all that, right? So what is the goal generally? Goal is to prevent unauthorized access, even if what is compromised? Password is compromised. Many times people put password on 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, anyone can guess that password. So for those, especially for those people, what comes into picture? Two-factor authentication. It can save them, right? So that is the thing. Components same password, PIN, OTP, also token or biometric you have these days. If you are logging into Apple account, for example, what do you have? Biometric. Okay, or for example, if you have to log in your Gmail from some other device, they not send you OTP. They rather send you what? A kind of authorization in your Google Photos app in your mobile or Gmail app, and you select that number 4620 or something like that, and then on that basis they also give you access. So whenever you have two different data sets are being used to authenticate, we are calling that as what? Two-factor authentication as such, used in critical sector, especially banking sector, or for government portals, or for Aadhaar information, all that, so that no one is able to misuse the information and data that you have in your favor. Okay, again here we have working step is simple, same thing we have described it. Okay, how it entire thing process, same thing has been explained here. Now two things you have to keep in mind here. One is the term that is used in this case is called as hexadecimal, that is generated by hash operation. Right? How OTP generated? If you try to understand this, because whenever you log in with your user ID password, bank is sending you OTP. Suppose after a few seconds again you log in, what happens? You get new OTP as such. So the OTP is generated by a computer operation that is called as what? Hash operation. Okay, it creates unique set of numbers, and based on mathematical operation on those numbers, the OTP is generated as such. And also, what do? They use time-based OTP. Okay, that is why the entire system also is referred as what? TOTP. That means after few seconds, after few minutes, again if you try to log in, it's not that you can use the same OTP to log in again. So for example, even if someone has stolen your mobile recently, okay, they cannot use your past OTP or the what you can call old OTP to log into your account, because every time as the time changes, the mathematical operation, how it is done, the number on which mathematical operation is done also changes as such. Okay, because it is linked with the time variation, and that is why every time you have new OTP that is generated, and that is why I call it time OTP, because it's sensitive to time. Okay, so the what you can call it, the concept you have to keep in mind, by what operation it is generated? Hash based operation. Okay, hash is the computer operation as such. Other thing you have to keep in mind is a term that is used is called as XOR, that is exclusive operation. Okay, it is a kind of logical operation. We're not here going to detail here. It is related to computer science and all, but we have to just keep these two terms in mind. Hash operation and exclusive operation, which is logical operation. These two are the ways how OTP is generated and how safety of account is ensured. So in UPSC they can ask this kind of question. Recently XOR term was seen in news. Recently hash operation term was seen in news. It is related to what? Which of these things? Okay, two-factor authentication and different things, cryptocurrency and all this they can give. So that is how we have to understand hash operation and exclusive operation range. Right? So same thing we have discussed before. What are their strengths and weaknesses? Strength obviously is the protection becomes very, very strong. Okay, because no one can steal information easily, because even if they are getting your password, guessing your password, at least you will have the safety, because OTP is coming on your device which is under your control as such, right? The strong protection versus phishing, password leaks, brute force attack and all that. Brute force attack means what? Computer is guessing your password. Okay, for example, you have password. So what can be your password? Computers start to apply a lot of combinations and all that. And if your password is very weak, 3 character, 4 character, computer can easily guess it. Man will not be able to guess it, but computer can operate and guess it very, very fast as such. That is why you would see that on many platforms they give you recommendation. You need to have 8-digit password. You need to have a special character. You need to have capital letter, small letter. Why it is required? Because if you're combining all these, it becomes very difficult to use brute force attack, because you'll have millions and millions of combinations. Okay, if you're using only numbers, right? So it can easily be guessed as such, because combination of number is limited, right? So that is how we are talking about this. Weakness is what? Again, vulnerability is there also, because many times we have seen, especially from this region that was in news very much famous in the Jharkhand, I think, or West Bengal, called as Jamtara. So people of Jamtara, they have begun to do what? SIM swap. Okay, so OTP is coming on your number, but it is being displayed on their number also. Okay, so various ways are there. So SMS vulnerability we have. Usability challenge because of backup of recovery device. Suppose if you lost your device, in that case, what will happen? You will not be able to access your account as such, right? Because bank will not give you access, grant you access without OTP. OTP you cannot get because you have lost your mobile. So it creates a lot of challenge. First you need to go and register FIR, then you have to get new SIM card, again you have to go and complain in banks and all that, right? So all this problem we have. Implementation cost also becomes what? High in this regard. So capital cost we have, and also it is not very foolproof. Even if you talk about 2FA, many times we have seen that 2FA is being bypassed by advanced theft method and all that. So cyber criminals are also evolving, and that is why continuously talk about the cyber security. The entire architecture has to continuously keep on evolving as such. So for now, 2FA, at least 8-digit password combined with the second factor, that can still provide safety to you for most of the critical parameters as such. Yes, that is the third point. Fourth, what do we have? Is exercise, okay, that is called as Zapad. Zapad means west. Okay, this is a Russian term. Okay, Russian term, that is west. So overall, the exercise itself is because it is targeting or aimed towards the Western countries. That is why they have named it like this. Okay, so Japad exercise 2025, or in English, if you translate, it will be exercise west. So exercises, military exercises these days, it becomes very important, because in prelims question like this is being asked. Also, you can use this to overall what you can call as write in the mains answer also. If writing the answer and all that, you can use this as a pointer. So if you talk about Japad exercise, okay, first of all, the exercise is largely historically has been conducted between two countries. One is Russia, other is Belarus. So Russia, Belarus strategic exercise, it will be conducted between 12 to 16. Okay, already today is the last day. So 12 to 16 of September 2025. Location is Belarus. Okay, Belarus, we have a region called as Barisov region. Okay, we can take a look at the map also. So exercise will conducted in Belarus. Belarus is a small country. If you look at the map of Europe, this entire region is what? Russia. Okay, this region. So this is your Russia. This country is what? Belarus. And why this region is being used for conducting exercise? Because this is which region? Ukraine. This is the Ukraine region. And then this is your Poland here. Okay, Poland. And this is which sea? This is all geographically, you have to largely focus from geographical perspective whenever this place is in coming news. So this is your Baltic Sea, right? And here you have Baltic country, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia and all that, right? And then you have the countries like Germany, France and all that. So basically last time also, if you talk about Russia-Ukraine war began in which year? February of 2021. So before invasion, the Russia was able to accumulate forces on which ground? On the same ground, that they are not offensive forces. They not actually, they kept on denying till the last day of the attack that they do not have any intention of carrying out attack. They are simply what I can say, mobilizing forces to participate in the Japad exercises, and then on that pretext they suddenly entered from which region? All this areas territory as such, right? So that was exercise which has begun, which has triggered what you can call as Russia-Ukraine war. So that is, from that perspective, becomes very, very important, because Japad exercise in news, UPSC can ask the question that after which exercise or during which exercise Ukraine invasion began. What is the answer? Japad exercise. So this is Belarus. The capital of Belarus is what? Minsk. Okay, so that is the Minsk. And okay, somewhere here, okay, in this area is where we have the this exercise that is being conducted. Okay, so that is the location based. Okay, Belarus. Try to go through the map and all that. Approximately this time, how many people are participating here? Very less, 13,000, right? If you compare that, before Russia-Ukraine war in 2021, Russia was able to accumulate and mobilize how many people? How many soldiers? 100,000. So from that perspective, it is very, very less. Okay, very low scale we can say exercise, at least as compared to 2021, when 100,000 soldiers or personals participated in the Japad exercise as such. Now, why this exercise also is important from India's perspective? Because India also has sent about 65 personals, okay, 65 military personals from Army, Air Force and Navy, led by the Kumaon Regiment Battalion. Okay, so that is what makes this interesting exercise, this exercise much more interesting, because India has decided to send its troop, okay, send its personnel to participate in the Japad exercise, and this will be represented, okay, represented by the Kumaon Regiment Battalion. That is the interesting development. Okay, and at the same time, India also has sent its military soldiers to participate in exercise with which country? USA. Okay, that is what you can call as a balancing act. Okay, diplomatic balancing act, because if you're just sending your military or soldiers to participate in the exercise that is largely dominated by Russia, it will be seen as what? Anti-Western stance as such. So you send military both case. Okay, that means no one will say anything about this, right? So that is so key facts and participant. Okay, right? Then map we have discussed. Then objective we can look at briefly. What is the objectives and activities performed during this exercise? Objective of any exercise is similar, that whenever we talk about any two countries, if they are participating in joint exercise, what is the main objective? Improve military cooperation. And in this context, it becomes important because practically, if you understand, Belarus is completely in the favor of Russia. Okay, and not in that its president. Okay, you have the president Alexander Lukashenko. So he has stated that he has no this confusion. If Russia agrees, then he will want to join with Russia and merge it as a single country itself. He will run the Belarus as a separate state only. Okay, he did not want to be a separate country, independent country, right? So that is in this regard you have to understand. So improve military cooperation, because there is a chance that if Russia begins to attack against Ukraine, okay, second frontal attack can begin. In that case, they can ask Belarusian military also to join us. Okay, so that is just possibility. Emphasis is on conventional warfare, because that is the kind of warfare Russia dependent on in the beginning of the war. Okay, and that was the reason why it was not able to fulfill its objective, because the nature of warfare has completely changed. Counter-terrorism drills, okay, and tactical company level operations in open and plain terrain. Now also you have to understand that in this case, for the first time, okay, in the Japad, they have used same technology. That means which technology we're talking about? They are using drone based technology, they are using artificial intelligence and all that. Okay, so that is the new thing. Scenario of simulation, rappelling attacks, restoring territorial integrity of the union state. Here you can see this term that is used. Belarus says that it is what kind of state? Union state. Basically it is part of Russia as such. Okay, something we can say remnant of the earlier Soviet Union. Now why Belarusian leader is willing to do so? Because his entire rule is being supported by Russia as such. Okay, he is kind of dictator, we can say. He is ruling Belarus by force, and if Russian forces do not support him, people of Belarus will simply remove him. Okay, so his personal interest is also there. That is how we have to understand. Now, in the geopolitical context and reactions, we try to understand timing is again the escalation we have seen in the Russia-Ukraine war as such. In this context, the attack is going on, and most importantly, for the first time, you would have read about that Russian drones was found where flying over Poland, and Poland has to scramble jets, okay, and to destroy this what you can call as drones and all that. So this exercise in this background seems very what you can say, what you can call it, conflationary in this understanding. And also you have to understand that Lithuania, Latvia, both countries are being claimed by Russia as its old part of Soviet Union. So many countries believe that if Ukraine falls, next number will be of these Baltic countries, Lithuania and Latvia as such. Okay, so that is why this exercise seems very provocative. Okay, the term that we can use here in this regard. Ukraine also has cautioned Belarus, because Belarus has a huge border. Okay, if we talk about the entire northern and the central part of Ukraine is connected with Belarus. So from Belarusian side, if again Russian forces and military start to enter, it can cause security concerns and challenges. So there is a concern over Russian deployment of hypersonic missiles. Oreshnik is a missile they have used also one time, they have claimed, and nuclear weapons they have begun to put in the Belarus also. Okay, so these are all very provocative stance being taken by Russia in this regard. Specifics of India's involvement. Again, India's involvement, we have discussed about that, Kumaon Regiment. And what is the overall objective of India's involvement? Focus on joint planning, because there is a continuous learning. Okay, because both Russian forces, Belarusian forces to some extent has been involved in active warfare. So they understand the challenges of modern warfare, and India also has to counteract Pakistani and Chinese aggression may be possible in the future as such. So we have to learn from wherever it is possible. That is why joint planning, tactical tricks, technical arms skill, and company level operations, how it is being managed, we have to learn, and that is why we are looking at the opportunities. Overall, it also enhances opportunity for what? Military diplomacy with Russia and Russian partner. Also, recently Prime Minister Modi also has met Alexander Lukashenko, okay, who is the president of Belarus. Okay, so that is in this context we have to understand this. Then next topic we have, the last topic is Samudra Pradakshina. Right, this term was in use because for the first time, the tri-service all-women circumnavigation expedition is being launched from India. Okay, that means you have representative from the Air Force, representatives from the Army, and representatives from Air Force. Okay, so 3 women representatives. They are going to set sail. Okay, they are using sailboat to do circumnavigation. Circumnavigation means what? Okay, you start from India, then you circumnavigate entire ocean and come back again to India as such. Okay, so you have circled the entire ocean, okay, or entire earth as such. So for the first time, we have seen earlier also such kind of efforts, but this was either by the naval naval personnel or by the military personnel. This is what is unique in this particular context. You have the first tri-services all women circumnavigation expedition. This is the first time India is trying it. That is why very, very important development. Now, key facts, if you look how many officers will participate here, we have 10 women officers. Name of ship becomes important. UPSC can ask prelims based questions. So it is called as Indian air cell vessel. Okay, Indian Army cell vessel Triveni. Okay, that is what you can call as. So Indian Army cell vessel Triveni. It is 50-foot sailboat, indigenously developed in which region? Puducherry. Okay, so sailboat, you understand? Sailboat means it is much more challenging to sail in the sailboats or circumnavigate in sailboat because they are only using what? Same like in the medieval times, earlier time people used to have, either using winds or the direction of ocean current as such. Okay, so small sailboat, and through that they are trying to circumnavigate the entire world, and this will be completed in, obviously, long time frame is required, so 9 months we can say. They'll complete the entire circumnavigation, Samudra Pradakshina, in a period of 9 months, covering a distance of, a huge distance of how many nautical miles? 26,000 nautical miles, right? So that is what makes it very interesting. Also during this journey, they will cross equator 2 times, and they will also pass through 3 great capes that you have. Okay, Cape Leuven, Cape Horn, and Cape Good Hope. These names you should keep in mind. Okay. 3 capes. We'll discuss later where it is located. So the significance of this exercises, they will cross equator twice and they will pass through. Okay, they will navigate through the 3 great capes on the oceans. That is Cape Leuven, Cape Horn, and Cape of Good Hope. Leuven is where? Australia. Cape Horn is South America. Right. And Cape of Good Hope you have in which country? Which region? Africa. Okay, Cape, you understand what is the significance of Cape? You are circumnavigating the entire ocean. That means how many oceans you have? Largely 3 major oceans: Atlantic, Indian, Pacific. So when you know we have entered from one ocean to other ocean, this cape act as a dividing boundary. Okay, so Cape Leuven, for example, it is dividing boundary between Pacific Ocean and Indian Ocean. Cape Horn, dividing boundary between Atlantic and Pacific, and Cape of Good Hope between Indian and Atlantic Ocean, right? So that is why the circumnavigating through cape become important. Only if you cross through this cape, you will be considered as circumnavigated the world as such. So if you look at the journey, map journey, it has been given, released by military. So let's start from where? Mumbai. Okay, and then they will go from Mumbai to where? Australia. Okay, this is where you have Cape Leuven. This is which ocean? Indian Ocean. By passing through Cape Leuven, they have entered in which ocean? Pacific Ocean. Again, they will stop at New Zealand, then keep on moving, and finally they will, okay, after this where they will reach? Argentina. Here what do we have? Cape? Which cape? Okay. So here you have entered from which ocean to which ocean? Pacific to Atlantic Ocean. Again you reach Cape of Good Hope. You enter from where to where? Atlantic Ocean to Indian Ocean. So you have covered through the entire ocean, and again after this they will reach where? Back to the place where they have started the journey from. So what they are doing? They are circumnavigating the entire world. They are crossing equator one time here and again crossing equator again while coming back. So crossing equator twice, passing through 3 capes, okay, and covering the entire distance we have discussed. So 21,600 nautical miles, as you can see from here. That is how we have to understand this. Now, when talk about the term circumnavigation, when can actually you say that you have circumnavigated the world? First condition is you should have crossed what? All longitude, because 360 longitudes we have. So if you are circumnavigating, you should have crossed all the longitudes. Second, all the major latitudes, Tropic Cancer, Tropic Capricorn, and the basically if there is possible in the ocean. Third, you should not use any straits or canal. That is the first condition. Okay, you cannot use and pass through straits or canal. You have to spend most of your journey in the open ocean itself, right? And start and finish at the same point. If you are able to do so, you will be successfully able to do circumnavigation of the Earth, this world as such, right? So that is what we have to understand. Now, obviously, again, if you look at the flag off and symbolism, flag off was from Gateway of India, Mumbai by Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh. Virtually has flagged off, and as obviously, we can understand that because this is being represented by the female soldiers of the 3 armed forces. So it is example of what? Representation of Nari Shakti. Also, it is example of 3 services working together. So it creates a kind of camaraderie, between the Army, Air Force, and the Navy as such. Third, because the shell boat has developed indigenously in Puducherry. So it also, if they are able to the sailboat has also been successful. That means it is a success of Atmanirbhar Bharat as such, right? Then spiritual sadhana, this is also how Raksha Mantri has stated that this is not only journey, you're not just going on recreational journey, it is also example of the spiritual sadhana, when you have to pass through so many challenges that ocean throws towards you, right? And also it is example of sheer willpower, because you are not using any machines, you're not using any engines and all that, you are simply using your this natural forces, wind, ocean current and all that. Plus, as they will stop at different places, different countries, it will also be helpful in defense diplomacy, with all these countries, global vision and all that. And overall, it is echoes of Navika Sagar Parikrama that was done earlier, but again the difference was it was done by single force, not by 3 forces. So that is what we have to understand in symbolism. Now, obviously, as far as the training is concerned, so they were trained on which kind of vessel? Class B vessel. Class B vessel is kind of short vessel, small vessel, and it cannot be used in the open ocean. It can be only used around what you can call as coastal areas and all that. So for training, you have to do that in coastal areas, right? And then in the open ocean, which kind of yacht or the sailboat they will be using? It is referred as Class A. That is much more larger. It has certain features. It is more fit, suitable for navigating in the open ocean. Prior mission experience they have by going through Seychelles and all that. They also have done their training there. Skills again simple to understand, navigation, communication, all the skills are required here. Vessel was acquired in October 2024. Leadership name you can read here, not important from examination perspective, but you should keep in mind that these were the leaders of the mission as such. Now, the most important thing is what kind of challenges they will have to face. So you can use your geography knowledge that we have discussed in class, both in atmosphere and the oceanography. First thing we know that in the ocean, southern part of ocean, we have talked about a wind that is called as what? Westerlies. If you remember, I told you in class, which of the hemisphere westerlies are strongest? Northern or southern hemisphere? Southern hemisphere. Why? Because you do not have any land mass as such. So I told you they are known by different name, roaring 40s, furious 50s, right? Screaming 70s, 60s and all that. So when they are passing through these oceans, they have to encounter which winds? Westerlies. Very strong winds, high moving winds as such, especially in the southern ocean. And Drake Passage again is near South America. Drake Passage is near the Cape Horn of South America. That is considered as very dangerous passage because here the wind speed is very high, and if you're not very careful, your boat can be thrown and can get damaged because there are a lot of small islands and rocky shoals and all that, right? So that is the main reason why Drake Passage is carefully navigated by the navigators. Treacherous water, same. Obviously, here you have Southern Ocean, and we have discussed temperature is what? Very low because it is kind of high altitude region. So water will be of which nature? Freezing nature. Plus, we know that because they will be also traveling in the equatorial region, and from equator they will go to tropical areas. That means what they will encounter in the ocean? Cyclones. So obviously because 9 months are there, right? 9 months there will be multiple places where cyclones can originate, and it is quite possible their boat can get trapped around the cyclonic weather and all that. So these all are the unpredictable scenarios, climatic situations, weather situations. They will have to navigate. Storm, same thing. Storms, high waves risk, navigation hazards are there. Equator crossing complications you also have, because if you remember, they will also have to pass through which pressure belt? Subtropical high pressure belt, where you have continuous sinking of air. And I told you that sailboats will have very much difficulty in this case because the wind movement is kind of obstructing. Okay, sailboat is trying to move and wind is kind of sinking. That means what is happening? They face obstruction in the past. So they will have to pass through such kind of areas, and after that, okay, through these complicated reasons, after that they will be able to finally come here. So you can understand, very challenging journey, okay, especially on the sailboat. Plus other advantages, they will also be able to do some kind of scientific research related to microplastic, marine biodiversity and the overall health of ocean by collecting samples from different places as such. Okay, so it has multidimensional importance, significance and all that, and that is why this becomes very important, and we have to track and see how this journey unfolds, okay, in the next 9 months as well. Now, if you look at the few of the questions that can be asked based on the topic we have discussed, some important topics. So we have 2FA, two-factor authentication. What is the correct option? First, it always requires a biometric factor along with the passport. True or false? False. Biometric factor is not required. You can have user ID, for example, right? Time-based OTP used in authenticator apps are example of 2FA, right? SIM swap attacks can compromise SMS-based 2FA. This is not just theoretical. This has happened in many of the cases. Okay, people have lost money because the SIM integrity was not there. So, what is the correct option? 2 and 3. Okay, 2 and 3, right? Correct option. That is the first. Second, if you look at about the first tri-service all-women circumnavigation sailing expedition. Expedition is being conducted under the aegis of Ministry of Defence. True or false? Ministry of Defence, because all three services are involved. So obviously, which ministry will be involved here? Ministry of Defence. Second, it involves participation from the Indian Army, Navy and Air Force. Correct. Expedition aimed to circumnavigate the globe, covering the 5 oceans and crossing the equator at least once. Okay, 5 oceans is how it is Arctic. You cannot cover Arctic. Okay, so that is obviously incorrect. Crossing the equator at least how many times? Twice. So that means this is also incorrect. So B is the right answer. Okay, 1 and 2. Third is, if you look at with reference to La Nina, consider the following statement: characterized by cooling of sea surface temperatures in the central and eastern Pacific Ocean. True or false? Okay. Which Pacific? This side you have cooling. Eastern Pacific or Western Pacific? Eastern Pacific. East or West? You don't understand. This is East. This is West. Forgot already direction itself. This is what? North. This is South. Okay. This is West. This is East. So which Pacific? Eastern Pacific. Right. So Eastern Pacific. Correct. La Nina is generally associated with increased rainfall over India during the southwest monsoon. True or false? True. It is always followed immediately by an El Nino event. No. Okay. Immediately followed by El Nino. What I told you, we have El Nino. El Nino is followed by La Nina. Okay. La Nina does not necessarily need to be followed by El Nino as such, because La Nina is kind of normal situation. In normal, what I told you, water current is always colder. So after many years, 3, 4, 5 years, you can have El Nino conditions. So that means third statement is incorrect. So what is the correct option here? B, 1 and 2. Right. So these are how questions can be framed to give you idea how UPSC can ask question from these kind of topics as such. So you have looked at. Now if you look at the overall importance wise, so most important obviously is La Nina, because it has significance both in the prelims examination, mains examination. It is having link with 2 chapters: climatology in physical geography, India's climate in the Indian geography. So very important 5-star. Learning of concept you have to focus upon. Regions behind La Nina, we'll discuss that in class when we talk about the India's climate. Disaster management perspective also you have a role here, plus weather, India's climate and all that. Okay, so both in prelims and mains question can be asked. Second is Samudra Pradakshina. Whenever such kind of missions you have, generally it is seen that in next few years UPSC generally asks question related to that, basic factual questions. So current affairs oriented, very important from defense perspective. You have to prepare it from the MCQ perspective, okay, rather facts and all that. And most important fact you have to focus what? The definition of circumnavigation. Okay, how many times equator is being crossed, what are the capes that has to be crossed, what are the oceans in which the circumnavigation is being done. Such kind of facts is important. Third is drone based radar we have discussed. Okay, the counter system can be added as pointer defense, not very important, just few points you can keep in mind from pre-perspective. 2-factor authentication, again 3-star. Basic concept you have to just keep in mind. How does 2-factor authentication work? Okay, what are the different components as such? Okay, so cyber security you have in the internal security and challenges subject. There also you can use it in the pointers. Okay, and Japard again least important, just where Japard is taking place and whether Indian Army has participated in that or not, that you have to keep in mind, plus location based question. Where is Belarus located? Neighboring country of Belarus, Baltic Sea and all that. So indirectly places and news based questions can be asked from this particular chapter. Okay, that is all about this particular week as such.